Hey guys, have you heard of Goldbelly? It's this amazing site where they ship the most iconic, famous foods from restaurants across the country, anywhere, nationwide. I've never found a more perfect gift than food. Goldbelly ships Chicago deep dish pizza, New York bagels, Maine lobster rolls, and even Ina Garden's famous cakes. So, if you're looking for a gift for the food lover in your life, head to goldbelly.com and get 20% off your first order with promo code GIFT. That's goldbelly.com, promo code GIFT.
You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
Mission Log, Prodigy, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. Supplemental. The makers of Star Trek Prodigy. Live from STLV.
Welcome into a supplemental episode of Mission Log Prodigy, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. I'm Norman Lau.
And I am Charlene Schmidt. For this supplemental episode, we wanted to share with all of you one of the topical panels from the Roddenberry Interactive stage at STLV 2023, also known as Creation's 57-year mission convention in Las Vegas. Norm, what do we have in store for our Mission Log Prodigy fans for this?
Well, we have none other than the creators of Star Trek Prodigy themselves, Dan and Kevin Hageman, and producer-writer Aaron Waltke. Now, since Star Trek Prodigy is an animated series, the SAG and WGA restrictions that affected STLV are a little more flexible, and we were able to discuss more at length about the future of Star Trek Prodigy and the current state of Season 2.
That's right. You heard that. It's also worth noting that since this was a live show recorded at the convention and there were some audio issues that were beyond our control, and our intrepid producer and editor Earl has done his very best to clean it up, but it's also not our optimal level of quality. And so we are aware of these issues, and next time, because we really hope there will be a next time, we're working diligently to make sure this doesn't happen again.
And that said, the content of the conversation is really what you're looking for. And we want you to stick around for this supplemental to listen to all of what is being said. So please enjoy our conversation with Dan and Kevin Hageman, Aaron Waltke, and stick around because we were also treated to a surprise guest. Please enjoy.
Good afternoon, everyone. How's everyone doing out there?
Hey! Get this turnout!
I know, this is fantastic. It warms the heart. We are here to talk about, I think we can actually say it this time because...
Can we?
I think we can. We're here to talk about Star Trek Prodigy.
Yes!
I'm Norman Lau, and this is my co-host.
Charlene Schmidt, hello!
And we do the Star Trek Prodigy podcast for Roddenberry. And we are so excited to see all of you out here today. It's really nice to see such an incredible Prodigy fan turnout. So give yourselves a round of applause for supporting that show.
And Enterprisians.
We have Enterprisians in the audience, so please stand up and be recognized because those cosplays are...
Yeah, you will. So cool.
So I have a lot to talk about today, and as you know, if you've attended the morning show with John and Jessica, you know that Roddenberry, we're under specific certain guidelines to talk about specific and certain nondescript things of a very specific Deep Space franchise that we love.
That's right. That's a very good way of putting
I
it.
said that for you, sure, because I don't have Deep Space franchises.
It's Deep Space franchises, baby. We're all about them.
But we also have a very special guests with us here who are probably going to be able to give you a little bit more clarity on what can and can't be said about this particular show because it falls under special guidelines or regulations that aren't necessarily in the same vein as the WGA or SAG-AFTRA. So before we bring them out, Sean, do you have any expectations of how, how Prodigy for you, for I, or for our fans is going to move forward? What do you see happening? It's kind of like with the support that we have right now.
Oh, do you want my really happy, fairy tale prediction?
Yes.
Okay, next year, networks are going to be scrambling for content, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, there's going to be a whole season of Prodigy ready to go soon enough. So Prodigy season 2 in 2024. And
That's what we're looking for.
3
right?
and 4 and 5.
So show of hands out there, how many of you have watched the entire series?
No way.
Okay. Oh, Dan and Kevin really should be seeing that. I'm going to ask you that question again.
And you know what? It didn't happen.
We have so much to do. We have so much to talk about. We have incredible guests. We have our special guest for the first time on the Roddenberry Interactive stage, Dan and Kevin Hageman, the creators of Star Trek Prodigy. They're working on the code.
Here it is.
Round of applause, people. Round of applause.
Hey. Have a seat, guys.
I'm going to pull the old Vegas joke. These guys just flew in, and boy, are their arms tired.
Our arms are tired, and we're in a short couch because we're brothers, guys. We're family. Yeah.
So, Dan, Kevin. Now, Kevin, you said this is your first Star Trek convention.
This is my very first Star Trek convention, everyone.
And this is Noah's second.
His second. I'm so excited.
Oh my gosh.
So excited.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you that question again. How many people out there in the audience have watched the entire season of Prodigy?
Yes. Me too, guys. Me too.
Before we get into some of the other topics that we want to talk about, I wanted to give you guys the opportunity to maybe educate all of us in the audience as to what's going on with what you can and can't talk about in terms of the strike, how it falls, how animation may fall underneath those guidelines. Because I think there's like a lot of misinformation or like assumed things that people interject into conversations that may not be necessarily correct. So I just...
Confusion.
Confusion.
It's complicated. The rules are different for us as opposed to you all, and yeah, it's a mess.
She's way more concise than me. That's why my shows run way over time.
Well, Kevin and I find ourselves in a very...
journalism.
We find ourselves in a very unique position where we are WGA and we support the strike, but at the same time, we are an animation show, which is not covered by WGA.
So our live action work, we're doing some live action stuff right now, but that's on pause because of the writer's strike. Because Star Trek Prodigy falls under IATSE, under the Animation Guild, we're actually free and open to talk about it right now. I think we might be one of the only Star Trek shows that we can talk, that can actually talk right now.
We can have Star Trek.
Yeah.
So when Sean and I were meeting this morning, because we didn't know exactly like what we could and couldn't talk about, if I were sitting out in the audience, which I have done in the past before I was up on this stage, having the fortune to be up on this stage, there used to be a mic in the center of the room where at the end of the panel people would ask questions. And I think there are a lot of people, that we have so many Prodigy fans out there, there may be some aspiring, budding, growing writers, artists, potential directors, people that want to get in the industry that may benefit from how you may have found your path in the industry. I remember in the interview that we did with you, you said that you were Amblin kids. And for those of you who don't understand that reference, Amblin is the entertainment studio that Steven Spielberg created to produce all of his movies. You guys were Amblin kids. How did you guys start? What was the entry point for you guys to say, you know what, this is a career path that I think I can do?
Well, Kevin, why don't you explain what we think Amblin means?
Yeah, I mean, we grew up with Goonies and E.T. and all these fantastic movies that Spielberg and Zemeckis and Christopher Columbus.
And ladies and gentlemen,
who invited this guy? Oh, thank you.
We're on the way. Tired. We got it.
Welcome. We just started. You didn't miss out on much.
So glad you could join us. Hi.
Yes, absolutely. I literally came straight from the airport for this.
This way. So wait, so
what Amblin means to us, it's everyday minor characters and something extraordinary happens.
It's all about wish fulfillment. E.T., Back to the Future, Goonies. It's always wish fulfillment. And that, I think if you watch Prodigy, there's the wish fulfillment of Star Trek, of outsiders suddenly discovering Star Trek for the first time. And so that's what we felt we wanted to bring, to Trek. When Kurtzman came to us and we wanted to create a new show that brought a young audience or a new audience to Star Trek, Dan and I were really intimidated at first because we love Star Trek, but this guy knows a lot more than we do, you know.
Oh, by the way, Aaron, we have Enterprisians in the audience today.
We sure do.
Oh my God, there's more. There's more.
There's more.
This is my dream come true.
They're growing. They're growing.
We know starting Protostar.
Incredible.
Protostar. Oh, I love it.
So when you were walking on stage, Aaron, the questions that I asked Dan and Kevin, because, you know, there may be potential new filmmakers, new animation artists, new writers out in the audience, and there may be something that can be learned from your experience. When did you realize in your fandom or in your career path that you could do this, that you could create content that you would want to watch and then influence others?
Well, you know, I grew up in the Midwest, about as far away from, you know, the entertainment industry as you could imagine. Like, I literally grew up between two cornfields, and so my only exposure to science fiction and fantasy was keeping my local Blockbuster rented out of every single VHS they had of whatever they had, and our local cable channel would air Saturday movie matinees of sci-fi and stuff. So for me, I had to just literally logic out, oh, somebody made this stuff, so that means logically it's not impossible for me to do it too. You know, as far as like taking the leap to actually pursue screenwriting and trying to actually work in a show like Star Trek, which I've read my entire life, I don't know, it was either naivete or complete foolishness where I just was sort of, I couldn't picture myself doing anything else, and I don't know if I'm good at anything else, so I was like, well, I got to give it a shot. So you know, if you are interested in you know, pursuing creative endeavors, I highly encourage you to at least give it a shot, you know, because otherwise you'll always have that lingering question of like, well, what if? And so, I mean, that's kind of been my approach to everything. Reckless abandon is my suggestion.
To boldly go, indeed.
Yes.
Right?
Can I help answer for us better even? Dan and I grew up in Oregon. Oregon, it rains a lot. There's not a lot of entertainment out there up in the Northwest. You know, it's not a realistic goal.
We had Will Vinton.
Will Vinton was the only artist up there who did the California Raisins. But our dad came back with a video camera once, and we were like young kids, and it's raining outside. You can't play outside, so we just started shooting movies in our basement, and we just continued making them. And exactly what Aaron's saying is like, whether it's writing or filmmaking, my God, you got phones now, you have easy cameras to use. You just kept making movies, and each time you just want to one-up yourself. You want to make it a little bit better. You want to have a little special effects this time, or actually have real costumes or actual actors, you know, and we just kept doing it until all the way to where we are today, really.
About what age did you get started?
Say that again?
About what age were you doing this?
I mean, Kevin and I...
13, maybe? He's younger.
Yeah.
He's the little baby brother. I like to make sure that's really clear. I'm old because I look like a baby, but I'm old.
I mean, I recently, when I was visiting my parents' house, I dug up a script, if you could call it that, that I apparently wrote when I was about 6 years old. That was, in fact, a Star Trek parody of some sort.
Wow.
It wasn't very good, but I've since changed my mind about TLS, but I think I called the original Enterprise the USS Old Fart in the script. I love it, but then it was me trying to be edgy, I think.
Now, you were saying that you worked with Aaron prior to Prodigy. How long has your relationship been? How did you find each other to work with each other?
So, my brother and I have two very different ways of working. I'm very much of the gut, and he very much takes his time till it feels right. And so, when we were working on Troll Hunters, we had to find...
By the way, shout out to Troll Hunters, everyone. Round of applause for Troll Hunters.
Yeah, Troll
your Arcadia series.
For anyone who has Netflix, Troll Hunters was a show that Guillermo del Toro created, and he didn't want to put the time into writing all 52 episodes, so he hired us to kind of flush everything out of this pilot.
And we had a weekend to figure out who's going to be in a writer's room, and we had never heard of Aaron, but we got a stack of about 30 scripts. And of these 30 scripts, I just need to read the first 2 pages, and I'll know if they're a good writer.
I had like 40 scripts to read, and I read them from front to back, because I'm like, you got to give each writer the time and the care, because you never know, right? So I read every single draft, and he read.
So I saw Aaron Walkie and Chad Quant, who were the writing team at that time, and Ashley Bradley. These are the same ones that I thought. 2 pages, maybe 2 pages.
So he might be a little smarter and more efficient than I am.
Well, I think it just goes to show that it's equal when you're pitching yourself or a project or anything. There's kind of 2 things you need to keep in mind, which is first impressions, which was Dan's approach, and having something of substance, which was Kevin's approach.
Thank you.
And I apparently tricked them into thinking I had both.
That's nice.
Yes.
So Aaron, so you've been writing scripts since you were younger. Have any of those scripts survived in any way to influence the 2 episodes that you actually created for the series?
A lot of the stuff that I made when I was really young was really strange, and I would say I've written a couple of the strangest Star Trek episodes, so in that way, I guess. But my sensibility always has been sort of one of sort of like philosophical wonder mixed with, I guess, cosmic horror mixed with absurdist humor. And so, I mean, that's a lot of that I got from Star Trek, because Star Trek, more than any other show, I think, contains multitudes, where you have one episode that's wildly humorous, like Trouble with Tribbles, but then you'll have another episode that's deeply troubling to watch, like Schisms. Schisms. So it's and somehow you just embrace all of it as this kind of big milieu of like, well, they're on a spaceship, so it's all the same story. And so that's been my approach very much. I love genre fiction a lot, because you can kind of, within a genre show, tell just about any story you want. I think, what was his name? Mike Flanagan, the Pharaoh director, had this really great point where he said that, if I wanted to write a story about generational trauma, maybe 5 people would come see that movie. But if I put a vampire in it, suddenly millions of people will get the same effect, and I'll still get to tell the story more or less that I want to tell. So that's been my approach.
So you're creating for yourself, Dan and Kevin being brothers, Kevin being the older, Dan being the younger. What is it like to work? Now, how long have you worked together as partners? Was this always your plan? How does that start? How do siblings, say the Coen brothers, Joe and Ethan, the Russo brothers, the Hageman brothers, how do you work together collaboratively? Do you help push each other? Do you compete with each other? Do you help each other drive these ideas forward? What is that like?
It takes some therapy.
Yeah, we're still brothers, which is amazing. We've been writing for over 20 years, and we're sharing a hotel room. So that says something, right?
Yeah.
I think early on we learned that, like, when you're really upset with someone, you're trying to put them in the worst place. And then the next time, you got to go even further. And then the next time, you got to go even further. So there's a lot of DEFCON 4 buttons being pushed into arguments. Of like,
you're waiting, so you would read the scripts, but just to stick it to your brother, you would only read 2 pages.
Yeah, I tried to do on a job. I think the fact that they've been collaborating so long in their brothers helps, as an outside observer. I do remember there was, like, when we first started writing on Troll Hunters, you're like, my brother and I have a system where, like, we have a rank system of how important an issue is, and if it's a 10, then it means that it's an automatic, like, no pass, no collect $200. And
I'm like George Costanza. I'm like, 10!
That was it. Like, immediately, as soon as they implemented the system, it was just 10! No, they're doing something that's just the right.
Yeah, this is neat how a system works.
Now the system which has actually lasted quite a long, is...
We have a new system.
Yes.
So anyone who has siblings out there, and you just have our co-worker, a little Will, and we go,
let's put a pin in that. Let's just put a pin in it.
We say, let's put a pin in it. Like, we disagree about the color of the uniform of a character. Let's just put a pin in it, and let's talk about something that we can agree on. And then we always come back to it, and we find an answer that we both like.
Yeah, which is great advice, I think. Javi Grillo-Marxuach, who created The Middleman, if you remember that show, has a similar idea, which is when you're struggling with the problem, and you know the beginning and you know the end, but you're struggling with the middle, just let it suck. Let it suck, and then work on the stuff that you know.
Yep.
And then eventually the beginning, the head and the tail of the story will meet each other, and eventually you'll get to a point where you're like, well, this would only work if we did this. And then you'll suddenly, a light bulb will go off, and you'll have figured it out in the back of your head. So, yeah, don't worry if you haven't figured out every single aspect of whatever story we're trying to tell right off the bat.
Yeah.
Can we say something, Norman?
Yes, Dan?
I feel so because I think there's a big elephant in this room that I want to talk about, and the elephant is that how important this fan support that the show has gotten. That I feel like the only reason we're here right now is because the fans of Star Trek are really supporting the show. And
Thank you, guys.
It has not gone unnoticed. Everyone on the crew is still working. It's one of those things where when we got the news, a lot of the crew felt like there's a lot of wind out of their sails. But when they're seeing all of the support, they're even more fired up. They're working twice as hard and twice as creatively. And season 2 is going to be more beautiful than season 1.
Season 2 is phenomenal. We are going to finishing it around Christmas time. So there's 20 episodes, and we maybe have another 7 to finish. We're really, really close. We're at the finishing line. And season 2 is absolutely fantastic. And I know you guys are going to love it. And I know this news has been hard on all of us about Paramount not being the home for our show. But honestly, we feel like there is a silver lining, that there is going to be a new home. We feel like our show is going to find even a better place, a place that's going to really, really highlight it and really get it to kids. Because we really want this show, I'm so proud and happy to see adults here, but also we want the kids to come too, and to be able to find a streamer that can get it to the kids.
Across the convention and talking to different fans and talking to fans of Prodigy in specific, one of the unifying messages that I've heard out there is that this is something that has been so important as an entry point, for younger viewers to be able to actually watch Star Trek amidst the milieu of all of the different original series and then of the new series. So with this destination in mind, where does the idea of creating a kind of a series like this that returns the strength and the core value of its storytelling to the morals, meanings, and messages from the very start? Was that the mission statement, if you will, for creating Prodigy? Did you feel that you needed to return to that type of short format storytelling where even though that the morals, meanings, and messages are very clear and maybe very obvious to adult viewers, for younger viewers, perhaps not so much, and they learn through the course of the experience by caring for the characters that they're evolving with?
Yeah, I think that's something we've done in Ninjago. We've done that in Troll Hunters, and I think that we know the viewers, there's a big swath of them who are between the ages of 8 and 13, and there's these amazing life lessons and things that are difficult to understand, or things that aren't just more challenging themes to be put out there. And so we enjoy putting those into the show. I'm glad that there's your show that's going out there to talk about these themes, to unpack these ideas. And I love listening to every single one of your episodes. So thank you, Mission.
Wow, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I just have to add that, I don't see entertainment has to be for kids or adults. What we do, when we mention the stuff that we grew up on, Goonies, Back to the Future, E.T., you look at Pixar or some of the older Pixar films maybe, these are just stories that are great for everyone. Why can't there be entertainment that's great for your kid and for the adult? And that's what we wanted Prodigy to be.
If they say you succeeded.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, that's partially why the Hagemans and myself got along so well, is we very much had that same sensibility where, maybe it's just because, as I said, I grew up watching all kinds of stuff, some of which probably I shouldn't have been seeing, but it ripped me, I guess, in a good way, insofar as, if I saw something that was a little tense or a little scary, sure, it would be scary in the moment, but then I would come out of it, realizing I'm intact, the heroes got through it and survived and grew from the experience. And so because of that, I was kind of inoculated against fear. Or, I would be presented with a challenging idea of wait, how did they find Data's head in a 500-year-old cave? I don't understand that. But then I would stay up late at night under the covers thinking about that, chewing on it, and pestering my parents about it. And then it ingrained in me a love of the sort of stories that everybody can enjoy. So, even if every single element of our show or other shows or Star Trek in general isn't immediately picked up by kids, I think what it does is it opens a question for them. and a question that could be answered upon revisiting shows or seeing new shows or watching shows with their parents. And that's the sort of stories that I love to tell.
So in the process of crafting stories and learning this and honing your craft, what is the impetus? What do you start with? Like when you're looking at a script or you're looking at a character arc, you're looking at development over the course of 20 episodes or the course of 2 seasons worth of 20 episodes, do you see it being the beginning and the end all at once, or do you let it evolve over time organically? Because there have to be milestones that you have to reach in certain parts of characters' journeys. How do you approach that?
I think we always start with, like, what moves you? And it could be a lot of things. It could be an adventure. It could be a moment of heart. It could be a tragedy. And I think those are the things that we start pacing out in the season, where we ask a big question. Where are these kids starting? Where are they going to end? Where are we going to go after that?
And then he had, like, season 1 of Star Trek Prodigy was about a bunch of young people who steal a Starfleet ship. That was the concept, right? And very early on, when we started to talk about season 2, it's about a bunch of young people who earn a Starfleet ship. And, like, that just clicked for us. That's the umbrella that everything was going to fit under.
Yeah, it's like any good story. You kind of have your hook or your plot, and then you have your theme. Guillermo del Toro, who we both worked with, used to say this thing where it was like, plot is the rhythm and story is the melody. And what he meant by that, I think, was just you have that sort of MacGuffin that is whatever the important story, important plot element that the kids are dealing with, like, we have a stolen starship and the Federation's after us. But then the story, the melody, is we're on a search for salvation, and maybe we'll find it in this very thing that we're pretending to be. In order just to survive, it may actually be the very key to thriving. And that finding that sort of line between the plot elements and the story elements, I think, is the best place you can start when you're figuring out the season or even an episode of any show.
And I think the touchstone that really got us emotional is this idea of, like, there's a group of kids out there who feel like they don't belong to Star Trek. I think that's, like, an emotional start, a place of, like, I want to see these kids get there. I want to see them, become ensigns. I want to see them grow. And so they're just, again, at the end of season 1, it's the beginning of their journey.
Because writers know, write what they know. Are you drawing from some type of personal experience where you always felt like you were on the outside looking in?
Oh, Indiana and Oregon. We feel like we don't belong in the entertainment, field.
And I greatly drew from my own experience as an orphaned alien on a starship as a child.
I know you changed your hair just for this appearance, so we're going to go back to the white and the box, of course. Yeah. But that's like, with the audience out there, I was talking about, our show or our beloved series as being a point of inclusivity as opposed to exclusivity. Everyone has their entry point. Everyone has at one point in time felt like I should be on the other side. And I think that that's what is one of Prodigy's greatest strengths. Do you feel that you have been one of those characters at one point in time, either outside or excluded or ostracized or judged? And that brings me to the next question of the silhouettes of the characters in your shows, whether it is Trollhunters. What I mean by silhouettes, so Matt Groening of The Simpsons said that any point in time on the show, you will be able to identify one of our characters based on their shape alone. Because they're individuals, they have different shapes, they have different personalities, they just have different nuances. So you should be able to recognize them at a moment's notice. Prodigy is exactly the same way, and so is Trollhunters, with Jim, and with Toby, and with Arg. So you have all these different shapes. Were they specifically chosen for the characters because of their personalities?
I think very early on, when Dan and I started to put together our characters and crew, we knew they needed to have different shapes. We knew they needed to have very strong, different personalities. It's not just about having a great character. It's about having a bunch of great characters, and how they relate to one another is what brings the chemistry and the magic to life in any great show. It's like Seinfeld, right? Spock. Yeah. There's just Seinfeld by himself. It stinks, but you get George Costanza and you get Elaine and you get all those characters all together. It becomes magic. And I think that's very early on. We wanted to bring that And on top of that, we wanted toys. I want toys.
Action figures.
We got a few out there, and I hope that there will be more someday with the support. And hope that
They keep selling out.
yeah, they keep selling out, which I love that. But like, if you look at the toys, they each have very distinctive shapes. We wanted it to be really fun.
What was really great, too, about the action figures is they've all got their own special kind of functionality. Like, Zero has the mounting bracket where you keep it. That's cool.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but a little bit cooler, because in her head, I remember we're like, you're going to have Zero, and Zero has a little light that turns.
Yeah, we wanted a button, so Zero.
And probably added. Originally, Dow was going to be like a chameleon type, and like his skin color would change color.
You could like dip in cold water.
And then we had the coolest weapon that could turn into anything.
I'm glad we didn't do that, because we didn't do that with his character.
Not yet, anyways.
Behind the scenes first here on the Roddenberry stage.
Yeah.
So in the process of you and Aaron and all of your writers working, when is that magic moment when you all come together and say, aha, that's it, that's the story, that's when we're going to sell this, and we know that every single person out there is going to be like, they see what we see. Is that something that you know?
A little presumptuous to think that you could just do that and then everyone's just going to fall in love with the same idea.
But I can say when we did, I mean, it was very early on when we were like, kids steal a spaceship, we're like, that would be awesome.
Yes. When you start to get at least the majority of the room, like, there are many times where the entire room, we had almost like 11 writers in our room.
Yeah, it was a pretty big room.
So to have all 11 people, I'm sure there's some people who are like,
we never all agreed. No.
Yeah. It's never always, but I think when this is one of the first shows, like Troll Hunters, we had Guillermo del Toro always making the final decisions. It was his show. He made the final call. We did everything that we can. And for the first time, Dan and I got to make a choice. Like the buck ended with us creatively. And so whenever Dan and I were like, yes, like we share a look and we're like, we're feeling it.
Well, we say put a pin in it.
We put a pin in it because we're at odds with one another. We're like, Aaron and I love an idea, but Dan hates it. Like that happens all the time.
Yeah, there's been a few times where I've had to play the role of a hostage negotiator.
Yeah.
But
he's the brother from another mother.
Yeah, we were always like, our daddies are family. We're like,
I tend to look at story as very fungible and plasticine in that, even if there's a specific idea that one person loves, another person doesn't, if you just talk it out and you get to the spirit of what it is about that idea that they like. Oh, I love that this character is going through this emotional journey. I love that they're the high concept flavor of them riding, a flying pteranodon or whatever. It's like, okay, how can we get the spirit of that with the spirit of yours and put those chocolate and peanut butter together? And inevitably, that's the joy of collaboration, is together you will come up with something that neither of you would have come up with if you were just typing at a computer alone in a cave somewhere.
Yeah, but even more, you're like, I got chocolate, and you got sardines. This isn't going to go together.
Sure. Then I just have to, go into my Zen mind palace and think about how to de-escalate the situation.
I mean, overall, it sounds like you two in particular are very complimentary, and then you're the peacemaker when things don't smooth out right away. But it occurs to me that there's not just one pair of siblings working on Prodigies, there's also the Bensons.
Sure. Yes.
And can you tell us a little bit about their dynamic and how they work together?
Are they together than us, Dan?
I just love the idea of working with sisters, and we got to know that, and we were actually trying to get them on another show, and they were like, we're not that interested, and I'm like, they're like, and then you're like, the only way you get us interested is if you're working on a Doctor Who or Star Trek.
Well, we got... So, yeah, and with them, most of our writers on our show, they don't come from the animation world. They're live action writers. My brother and I I don't want to say we started off. We do a lot of live action writing as well, but we really, like the Bensons had done a lot of live action TV, and we just wanted to bring that to Prodigy. We didn't want it to come off too young. We wanted it to be eloquent and very sophisticated, and I'm not saying other animated shows don't do that, but there's a lot of animated shows that are strictly meant for 8 and under, and we didn't want that to be.
I think the Bensons have very great complementary strengths, where like Shawnee's very logical and she knew everything Star Trek, and Julie was always pushing character. Why do we care about Rock? And so having those two minds, character and logic, or even you could say character and plot, it really helps make one nice tapestry.
So I have a few more questions for you, and then I'm going to walk around because there's a great audience here, and I want you guys to have the opportunity to ask our esteemed panel guests some questions yourselves. But one of the things I always wanted to know, since we have the Peacemaker moderator, the brothers that put pins in each other, when you have the Immortal Star script, all of the writers were on that. How do you manage the entire writing team to create this two-part episode? Like, how do you start with that? Whose voice is heard most? How do you balance out everyone's needs? How do you make sure that everyone has the representation of that entire writing staff on screen?
I think before we even get into that episode, I want to say that every writer makes contributions to every episode.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, when you say like Aaron worked on 2 episodes, or he's worked on every episode. I credit that to everyone on our writing, team. Every episode, we start off, we're all together in a room trying to come up with what we think is best for the show. We all agree on what each episode is. When there's an episode, it's Aaron's episode, we all spend like a week or two all together bringing our best ideas, trying to even though he's going to be the one putting it to the page, we'll establish him with everything that we
We'll look at Kobayashi and we'll say this one would be a great one for Loki because of his knowledge of Star Trek.
Sure.
And so we'll kind of place them. We look at each writer and go, Chad is a great comedic writer, so we'll give him a comedic forward episode. Mm-hmm. So we want to, it's like our stable where we want to play to their strengths. Yeah, but everyone has points. Even when Aaron writes that script, we'll give notes. Aaron will write another draft. When we're done, we'll do a draft, and then we'll have the room do a draft where we all read it together in a table read. And if someone has a joke, and if something that the room says, yeah, that's a great idea, we put it in there.
Okay. Or if they say, I was confused by that, or what is that line supposed to be, we'll revisit that. Sometimes even like literally the Friday it's supposed to go out that night, they'll be like, we'll rewrite half a scene just to make it play a little better, or that sort of thing.
And they're just being collaborative. Like every episode, I don't credit, it's all of us together. Yeah.
And then I think, if you look at the episodes, we gave everyone, I think, 2 episodes. And then we were like, well, who's going to do usually Kevin and I will do the finale, or the pilot or the first one. But then when we had who's going to have this episode, instead of giving someone 3 episodes, we go, let's all put our names on it. And then in that case, what we did, instead of giving it to one writer, we gave people scenes. We said, you're going to do Emma Jankum stuff, you're going to do Eva Zero stuff, and then we come together.
Yeah, that episode in particular, Immortal Star, because it was a mid-season finale and it had so many little mini storylines going on, it actually lent itself pretty well to breaking it up into, quarters or what have you, of both halves. And it's what I like to call a tiramisu script, where you have a bunch of scenelets that all kind of add up to something delicious, hopefully.
Or a 7-layer bean dip.
Yes. And so with that, I think we each kind of took, a 4 or 5 page chunk, and then, if 2 of us were working together, the scenes that informed each other, we then came together, did a pass together, and then we kind of, slowly assembled it that way, like a Voltron.
And credit to the title to Shauna Benson. She was the one.
Yeah, because she was, I think week 1, they were like, why is the asteroid called Tars Lamora? And then Shauna came in and said, well, I was playing with anagrams, and I think it spells Lamora Star. Did you mean to do that? And then we were like, yes, we do.
Tars Lamora, Kevin and I worked on a project called The Lies of Rock Lamora. If the Blueberries love that book, so that's where Lies Lamora comes from.
We've talked about writing and directing, but one of the things about Prodigy that I love the most, being an artist myself, I love the color palette. I love the brightness. I love the vibrancy. I love the saturation. I am literally wearing, this is my Prodigy Hawaiian shirt. If Murph was a shirt, this would be Murph's shirt. Perfect, right? So I want to credit and make sure that we all credit the tremendous amount of the digital artists and the storyboard. Everyone who contributes to some type of to the whole puzzle, because it is gorgeous. I mean, seeing the Protostar fly across these nebulas, which just could be black, empty space, but they're not. And when you look at space like that, especially if I were, 10 to 12 years old again, I would be like, that's inspiring. That's hopeful. These color palettes, they in some way, they capture my attention. They make me imagine. They make me dream. And without these types of artists that conceive of this, when did you guys meet? And this is a long way of asking a question. When did you guys meet Benny Bond, and why did you choose him, his style, and the art direction that the animation was, turned into this incredible new look, for animation?
I am so enamored and proud of our supervising director, Ben. This guy, when you do animation today, it's all Pixar and DreamWorks, and there's a certain style in American animation. And just now, with the rise of Spider-Verse or Turtles, or there's things that are starting to push it, which is so exciting. And Ben, when we first imagined the show, we wanted it colorful. Yes, we wanted it very cinematic. We wanted it to fit in the universe of Trek so that we could be part of canon, that we're not going to be the little stepchild brother to the other Trek shows. We wanted to be on equal standing ground. But he brought this beauty. I mean, he is just, and a style that was...
He's uncompromising, which is a fantastic attribute to have. Because, there'd be a lot of artists, he's like, no, this artist isn't good enough. He was finding artists from all over the world. He was like, a lot of European artists. He was always pushing it, always trying to create a bigger cinematic feel, and that's when we fell in love with him, because he got it. Because oftentimes you're spending a lot of time going, this isn't Little Kirk, Little Spock. This is not a little kid's Nickelodeon, for 6 and under. And he got it from day one.
And I'm honestly really proud. If you guys saw our books of numbers and the money spent, the price of our show is probably half the price of a lot of good animation out there that you might see, rival shows and things. We're like half the price. And the reason why it looks so good, I think it's one of the best looking animated shows out there personally, and I think it's because of the love that everyone has put in. Everyone has exceeded the expectations or the budget that we had.
We have this minister, oh my God, just a show to Bonnie, come here.
Bonnie Gordon, ladies and gentlemen.
This is happening either. Nobody told me anything.
It's all a surprise.
Oh, yes.
Totally.
A Hageman sandwich. Hi, Bonnie. Hi, how's it going?
So let's go all the way back to the beginning.
Start over.
Just to finish Kevin's thought, the reason that Star Trek Prodigy looks as good as it does on a smaller budget than the live-action shows is, when you talk to a lot of the artists that work in animation especially, they've assembled this amazing sort of catalog of old-school cinema techniques that's, doing matte paintings, which is what they did on Hitchcock films, and in order to evoke this amazing alien world instead of generating it all in CGI, or doing a simple rack focus and having characters move in the foreground to simulate a crowd rather than having to create, hundreds of different characters. There's all these different little tips and tricks that people that have been working in the trade for a long time are happy to pull out, and especially on a show that they care about, like Prodigy. So we just said, go nuts. And yeah, go nuts they did.
Can I add also, originally my brother and I, music is so important. And we ran into, on a Star Trek day, we ran into Michael Giacchino, and we're the biggest fans of Michael Giacchino. And he was the nicest guy. And he's like, hey, do you want me to do the theme song for your show? And I'm like, yes. And we thought budget-wise, we're not going to, we're a little intimate show. Yeah, we're going to have the budget of four instruments. What can you do with 4 instruments? And he's like, no, let me take care of it. And he figured it out. And he did, not only, I love our theme score that he did, but he brought us Nami, this young composer.
Round of applause for Nami.
Yes.
She'll be here tomorrow.
She'll be on the panel tomorrow.
Amazing. And we have a full orchestra doing music. And like for Dan and I, like picture is gorgeous. You know, writing is fantastic, but music is everything. And I did not want some like guy in the background playing a synthesizer, you know, doing the music for a show. We needed some real. You want a theremin in there? Or? Yeah, no. So very happy with that.
We have a little bit of time left.
You have a lot of time left because I'm next, and honestly, it's a pregame with Bonnie Gordon. This could be the pregame right here. Honestly, no, I thought I was up at 4:30, but everything got moved around, so I'm racing here to do a concert that I had no idea I was doing. This is way better. So keep those Prodigy questions coming.
Anyone have any Prodigy questions out there?
Yeah, let's say Q&A.
Hold on, down. Gotta get your microphone.
You guys have plenty of time.
Bonnie was calling the shots, so I'm just.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, you're in charge now.
Yeah. Well, we'll just move it over into my thing.
Hi, I'm gonna. Hi.
Hi.
I'm gonna pull a Norm and ask a long-winded question.
We have the time now, darling.
So listen, the time episode with
Time Amok.
Yes, Time Amok, my favorite. And what you did with the oscillating sinusoidal that explained that, like as a math teacher, that's a pre-calculus concept, high concept, super impressive. And I wanted to know, which leads me to my question, like, do you pick out, like, Star Trek is known to have, you know, a time travel episode, to have a holodeck episode or a mystery episode.
The tropes.
Yes. So do you insert those? Are you planning them? Are we getting more of them?
Yes, and yes.
Yes.
I think, like, on that episode specifically, you know, we're big Twilight Zone fans, Star Trek fans. We knew there had to be a time episode. And when we wrote the first draft, we loved the idea of characters fractured in time. But it was David Mack, who was a consultant at the time, who read it. He's like, you know what, guys? Time oscillates. And I was like, what does that mean? And he showed a picture of a damped sine wave. I'm like, what does that mean?
In the script, fun fact, they had the math equations in the script. So as we were getting the scripts, as the voice actors were receiving it to read, they would have the math equations in the script to dumb it down for us.
I believe the Nickelodeon executive said it was the first time they received a script that actually had a
calculus in it. Yeah.
Calculus put into the script.
You can really tell that, and I want a copy of that script.
Yeah, well, we will get you one. We will get you one. And to finish answering your question too, like you're talking about, like when we first started the show, we're introducing new people to Trek, where we wanted to like hold their hand and take them slowly into the Trek universe, which is deep and vast, with a lot of cool concepts, cool episodes. And so right away, like when we first started the writer's room, what are the greatest hits? What are the episodes? What are the things that we have to see to introduce kids or a new viewer into what makes Trek, right? And so a time episode was one of them, and so that was ours.
Yeah, and what was really fun, though, it's like back in the Troll Hunters days, Dan used to call it trope-a-dope. When you start with what's the trope, and then how do you flip it on its head and reinvent it, and then add to the canon of that in a really inventive way. And it was really fun doing that with Star Trek because, you know, right off the gate, we spent like 2 weeks, it felt like, just talking about like, what are the fundamental building blocks of if you had to explain all the cool stuff about Star Trek to a complete stranger? And then we kind of built from there. And that, if you look at season 1, especially the first half, that's what it is. It's like every season is just...
Yeah, Kobayashi was the hologram. Where
that was like the first act of that is, what's a holodeck? And I was like, let me at him, coach. I love holodeck in this episode.
Let me in the game.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, who was next?
So, first off, I adore Prodigy. It's like my favorite of the new Trek series. I'm also a huge Captain Janeway fan, and I love that even in hologram form, she's like a mentor to the kids. Did you always, like, was that your original idea? Did you know that you wanted specifically Captain Janeway, or were you, like, considering other captains, other officers?
We knew
that process?
We knew it from day one when we were outside the car after the meeting with the secret hideout, and they had asked us if we were interested in a Star Trek show. And as we were rocking away, we were like, "That's not us. I don't know if we can handle. I don't know if we could do that." And then, literally, as we were outside the car about to go in, we're like, But if it's about a bunch of kids who don't know anything about Star Trek, but the thing I did know about Star Trek, I'm like, who would be there? So we did Ninjago. We're like, who would be their Sensei Rue? And we go, it's got to be Janeway. We knew enough because she had that matron mood. She's kind of stern. We knew that she would be a fantastic mentor. And then
you don't want to see Captain Kirk over a bunch of children. Like that's what no, like Jane with.
I read that fan fiction. It was
China was actually pretty poorly, so we wanted to do that. And
she was great. She had the perfect fit.
But not only did we then go, oh, that's a cool idea. We got in the car and we drove to DreamWorks where Aaron was there, and we said, is this possible with Janeway? And that's when he goes, well, I think it could be a hologram.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you were like, we wanted to be Janeway, but we also want to start it in a cave in the Delta, way out there.
We didn't say that. We just said something.
It's like Delta Quadrant. You probably should be in the Delta Quadrant, and if you want it, it could be a hologram character. Our officers were right next to each other at the time because I was showing the third installment of the Terrence Arcadia series called Wizards, and they were writing the movie, and so every so often they would pop in and say, we just want to be in a secret hideout and they want to make a Star Trek show. You like Star Trek, right? And I was like, yes, I do. And so it was very organic, I think, and obviously right off the bat there was discussion of can we get Kate, would she do it, what would that look like, and so we kicked the tires and explored every possibility. Is it a brand new hologram character, are there other legacy characters, but we just kept coming back to Janeway because she was always had to be a new fit.
We knew it had to be her or us. Star Trek fans were
I was so scared during negotiations. I was so scared, there was a moment where maybe we wouldn't get her. And I was like, I didn't know.
That was a dark day.
I didn't know if we had a show without her. Yeah.
That is beautiful, and I love you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have a question? I have a question for the fabulous Bonnie Gordon.
Uh-oh.
How did you meet the Hagemans, and how did you meet Aaron?
I hate telling this story because this is what you should not do when trying to audition for any project. I reached out to them on Twitter first, and I was like, I'm sorry, I X'd them.
You Z'd.
I Z'd them, and I was like, I'm a voice actor, I love Star Trek, here's my demo. And they were like, who are you? And I'm like, I'll find a way in. And I did. I pulled every string I had, got an audition, and then I remember I got a call back for Gwen, and I went into...
Well, it was a bit of a bless her heart.
Yeah, I could tell. They were like, oh, this poor child. I was like, I regretted it. I regretted it the minute I hit send. I regretted all my decisions.
No, but she came in with a Star Trek dress. And
I was full on. I had a comm badge in case they needed to call me. But I walk into the callback, and I could immediately. They're like, it's Bonnie from Twitter. Like, they had the all, but also all moment from both of you, but in a good way. I think they're like, oh, she did it. She found a way in.
But then it wasn't just. But then it was all on you at that point, and you did a great job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, she was up there. And Alex Kurtzman, he was like, I really like this Bonnie Gordon.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then I think we loved you so much that in addition to the Protostar, while we were getting the rest of the cast figured out, we were doing what are called animatics, where you start doing the storyboards and cutting them together for time. But you need voices to sell the characters, especially in the pilot. And Bonnie stepped in and did what's called scratch audio, where she basically performed them with all of the emotion that she would, any other role, and really served a lot of the characters, including the role of Gwen. Like, I don't know if the role of Gwen would be the same if you had not been able to bring our words to life the way that we...
I didn't really want to hear Linda Janeway from you.
Oh, no!
She was a Janeway. Does you guys want to hear Janeway?
Yes. Well, when Kate Milgrew was busy, they call me in. And I get to do her scratch voice. But then she looks at me and goes, I don't sound like that. And I'm like, no, you don't. But it's pretty close.
But the cadence is correct.
Yeah. Oh, when we all had dinner, in Chicago, Star Trek Chicago, and she goes, I hear you do my voice.
No, I got that out. I put it on the spot.
Oh, you did.
I had to wine. I was like, oh, you got to hear Bonnie's version.
I think that's when I grabbed the bottle of wine and was like, let me just take a moment.
And this is where we bring Garrett Wong on stage, because he'd be Garrett and Bonnie go.
Oh, man. My voice is a little tired, but it was a lot of, hello. I'm Janeway of the USS Protostar. You know, I did the whole thing. She was like, I don't sound like
Yeah, she just thought.
She was like, that doesn't sound serious. I don't know what that was. She's like, you sound like Cap on Headbutt. I don't sound like that. And I'm like, I know. It's mostly just to capture your essence. And I'm like backpedaling. I'm not trying to do an impression. I'm just trying to capture your energy. And she's like, I played Headbutt on Broadway, you know. And then she turns to Aaron and starts talking about something else, and I'm looking there. I was trying to laugh. She's like,
You do have a certain old Hollywood charm. She said, are you saying I'm affected? And I was like,
yeah. I know, we're just backpedaling. I'm like, so, another bottle of wine for the table? Anyone?
No, sorry. Kate is so she's amazing.
Oh, she is?
I love Kate. My brother and I first met her when we first learned that we got her, and we had drinks with Alex Kurtzman and her. She comes in, and Alex and Dan and I are sitting there.
We're all hanging, like we're meeting.
We're having a cocktail, and she comes in, and she's like, "What are we drinking, boys?" That is just, yes, that's you.
you must try the song dabs.
Yeah.
So I know we have something special to discuss, and I know that you can talk about it in the way that you need to talk about it, but I'm going to leave that up to you, what you can and can't say.
Oh, I think we can.
That's my motto, too. Mario, the Prodigy panel. You should
Is that you should probably...
If you know what I'm missing.
Make a favor, we'll do a clip.
We have gotten a promo from CBS who
A sneak preview.
year or so, they love and support our show, and they are fighting, and they're in active talks right now to try to find a new home for our show. So we're really, really confident about one day landing somewhere and people being able to see our season 2. But come tomorrow, guys, you guys are going to get a world exclusive of season 2.
And that is Dr. Sharp decided to be...
They only wanted us to do a 2-minute clip, or said, man, it has to be 4 minutes.
I'm saying, I just want to say, like, people who maybe haven't even seen our show, you're going to want to come see this.
There's going to be some videos.
There is some pretty big things that are going to be revealed.
You heard it here first.
So how does that work with CBS? Do they say, yes, you give you permission to show this because... Where does it fall into the...
Yeah, because they support us. Like, we asked, like, can we... Actually, wait, we're trying to figure out what to do. We're going to do it like a live table. We're going to do a turbo. And they go, that's kind of boring. Like, listening to us, money would be great. Doing a table read, not the most exciting thing.
I'll do a run-on show.
And then
PBSers are not going to be there. They're not be entertainment.
Yeah, that's true. Like, Keola's originally going to come, and she's not for solidarity for SAG. But, like, you know, yes.
That's because our show is TV animation and tag. It works for both SAG and WGA. We're allowed to show it, so
we can show it.
We're doing it.
We can do it.
Well,
very exciting.
Unless anyone has any other questions, I just want to say, before I was co-host for Mission Log and Mission Log Prodigy along with Shar, and then Mission Log Bane along with John, I was a fan. I sat exactly where you sat. And I would be asking the exact same questions that I'm asking all of these incredible guests right now. So if anyone out there wants to be a podcaster or has a dream of doing something like this or a dream of doing what they do, you can do it. You can do it. I was not on this side of the fence all the time. You know, only a few short years ago, I was on that side of the fence. And it's because I wanted to do something like this. And all it takes is a lot of determination, belief in yourself, and just the courage to do the one thing that is very hard to do, and is take that first step. Take that first step. Be a writer. You know, be a performer, be a director, you know, be a podcaster. If you want to be part of this creative process, it's so fulfilling and it's so enriching that I can't recommend it enough if you want to do it.
Go to Starfleet on a Star ship.
Just do it. Also do that.
Yep.
Because you're being influenced by their storytelling to do
Do
just
crimes. Space crimes. Steal ships. You're good. Yeah, just get started.
As long as we're in a head of grab, you could do anything.
There's a gray area in there.
And that is the Star Trek Roddenberry mission log statement: to boldly go, to believe in yourself. On behalf of Roddenberry Entertainment and my co-host Shar and everyone on Mission Log, I'd like to thank Aaron Walke, Kevin Hageman, Bonnie Gordon, Dan Hageman, go on the Star Trek Prodigy panel. Thank you for being here. Make sure you go to that panel tomorrow and live logs and proper.
This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.